How does it feel then, obviously, reflecting back now, where you went from literally zero, struggling, sleeping in a basement with other people, not having really much funds, blowing accounts, to quite the opposite? You've made 6 figures. Like, how does it feel doing that comparison?
It feels great, but
So welcome everyone back to the Words of Rizdom Podcast. We're still here in New York, and it is my absolute pleasure to have Paladin with us today. Is Paladin your real name?
Paladin's my nickname, but that's what I go by in the Forex world.
Okay. I actually Googled it. We'll come on that later in terms of the name, but I really love the definition. But hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on. My first ever podcast, so
hey,
it'll be interesting.
Hey, the best one to be on, eh? But yeah, well, how we like to do this is like to talk about, obviously, your journey, how you got to where you are today. We could keep certain parts brief because no doubt you've talked about it a few times already. But for those who are out there who haven't come across you before, which I think will probably be hard for a lot of people, they probably know you right now. But yeah, if you just go over like how you got to where you are today, and we'll just take it from there.
Okay, yeah, just to give like a brief overview. Basically got into Forex trading in 2019. I was in college and I just wanted to find a way to make money because I needed money quickly. And then I dropped out of college, 2020. I went through the trials and tribulations, and then I discovered prop firms, and that's how I actually came up. 2021, I was doing a bunch of different challenges, and I ended up losing basically every challenge I've done. And then 2022, I finally was able to manage 7 figures of funding with prop firm capital and make hundreds of thousands of dollars through that.
Sounds incredible. It sounds incredible when you say it. And that was very, very brief indeed. So let's start at the beginning, right? Let's start at the beginning. Obviously, you were at college, as you say. You said you need to make money quickly. Why?
Basically, I've had family problems where money was a big thing. Like, I come from a low-income family, so my parents would always stress about money, so I couldn't really go the traditional path because college is 4 years, and then after that, you gotta look for a job, and that also you start with maybe a 60, 70K salary. And that wouldn't give me enough money to help my parents right off the start. So I couldn't afford to see my parents suffer for another 4 or 5 years, me going through college and all that. So I started looking up ways to make money online. I did a bunch of things from selling sneakers, waiting outside all night for sneakers to sell for a couple of $100s, but that doesn't really buy anything. So then I eventually found Forex through IML. And then through that, I was able to see the potential. I was able to see on Instagram all these other Forex gurus making tons of money, tens of thousands of dollars in a day, living the lifestyle. And I thought, okay, this is the perfect opportunity to actually be able to retire my parents. So that's why I decided, okay, I have to drop out of college. If it wasn't for my family's financial situation, I would have went the traditional path. But I urgently needed money. So then that's why I said, okay, I'm just going to risk it all, drop out of college. And I come from a traditional Asian family household. So growing up, education, that's the number one key thing. So when I dropped out, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I just dropped out, went to my friend's couch, stayed there. I told him I'm going to stay there for a couple of weeks while I figure out how I'm going to live. So actually going back, so after high school, when I graduated, my parents actually went back to India, their home country. And the reason why is because they couldn't afford to live in New York City. It's expensive. Just to work here, I like to think of it as like immigrants. When they come here from another country, they work like peasants. But back in their country, they're like royalty. So then my parents just went back to their country because there's no point of just living. There's no point of just working all day just to barely survive. So they went back to their country, and I was in college dorming. So they thought, okay, he's fine. He's dorming. He'll spend 4 years doing college and all that. And then I ended up just dropping out. Went full-time Forex. Like I mentioned, I was in my friend's house staying for a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks turned into 2 months. Eventually, I did have to leave because I just didn't want to keep staying there. Even though they were pretty inviting, his parents understood where I'm coming from. I just didn't want to keep taking from them, eating every day for free from them, sleeping every day. They live in a house, but it was still, I just didn't want to keep taking. Then I eventually moved to a place in Brooklyn. Not a great neighborhood. I remember there used to be like needles on the streets and all that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So I was doing Uber Eats on my bicycle because it was hard finding a job. And then I was doing Uber Eats This was during the winter time, and I did that for 3 to 4 months just to pay rent. And I remember I used to come home after doing Uber Eats around like 11 p.m. It's very hard to make money with Uber Eats. Like compared to the amount of money made from Forex trading now back to Uber Eats, it's pretty crazy. I used to work so hard all day, 5-6 hours bicycling in the cold just to come home with maybe $150.
Wow.
And that's a good day. And then I remember I used to come home, cook up that $1 spaghetti can that I had, and then go to sleep and then wake up the next morning to trade New York session in the morning. So while I was doing this, I was obviously buying prop firm challenges.
Yeah.
Because that was my way out, prop firms. Prop firms literally like saved me because it's very hard to grow your couple of hundreds of dollars into hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Of course.
But with prop firms, if you invest some money, maybe $500 to do, what would that get you now? Like a 100K challenge, I think. And with a 100K challenge, you can basically make a couple of thousands of dollars per trade. So that was my way out. That was my plan from the back of my head. And I just kept doing challenges. I kept failing. And just that need for money is what made me fail because I would go aggressive or sometimes I would miss trades and think I just missed out a lot of money. So then from then on, I went to Uber Eats. I started working in a deli as well because just Uber Eats in the winter when it was snowing, sometimes I just couldn't go out. I tried a couple of days in the snow, but it was too crazy. And then eventually in 2021, by the end of 2021, going into 2022, I finally got a 200K funded account. Okay. So that was the start of the 2022 year, which was my best year, my breakthrough year. So I started with a 200K funded account. I remember I got up to $16,000 in profits. And at this time now, I was doing a doorman job. So I was working 36 hours a week. I went back to college actually because there are times where you just lose hope. Like you lose everything and you're like, okay, this might not work. Let me just go back to college. So I went back to college. I was working as a doorman and I still was doing Forex on the side. And it was at that time when I had when I didn't just rely on Forex money, but I had that doorman job money coming in. I was able to actually do good in my trading. It was so weird. It was like, I didn't care about trading as much. Yeah. But I was still trading. Okay, there's a trade opportunity here. Let me get in. I got on my 200K account. And like I mentioned, I got up to $16,000, my doorman job. And then what ended up happening was, it was funny because beginning of 2022, I actually lost 10%. So with FTMO, that was my first prop firm. I lost that entire account and I made only $4,000 withdrawal from that. And eventually with that $4,000, I went back to doing more challenges and I got funded again. And eventually I was able to do 400K. I was able to max out FTMO, was able to get a $40,000 withdrawal. And then I quit my doorman job. I started doing Forex full time. I quit my doorman job. I quit college. And then I started going back to doing full-time day trading with Forex. And then 2022, I just kept doing more challenges. It finally somewhat clicked. I finally understood how to tackle these challenges the right way. What worked for me, what didn't work for me, the psychology behind that. And then I was able to get 7 figures in funding, able to withdraw $250,000 in 2022. And then here I am now.
Here you are now. There's so much to go over there. And, I'm sure people want us to dive straight into the trading. But before we do that, we'll spend a little bit of time on that journey, and we'll start with the beginning. So like you said, your parents went back and you sort of had a rough time in terms of finances whilst here in New York, which makes sense, eh? I swear, I got at McDonald's yesterday, I got 4 things, cost me $30. The prices here in New York are insane, let alone living here. So that's just one meal. And what was it like, obviously, growing up then, having sort of the low finances? Was it a bit of a struggle? Was it some hardship for you?
Okay, yeah, so basically my dad was actually an entrepreneur. So he was an immigrant and he came here with his own business. He used to sell scarves at street fairs. And he actually used to do good. He used to have multiple stores. He had 2-3 employees in each tent, like in the street fairs. Yeah. And then in I don't know what the year was, but when I was in high school, a sophomore in high school, and the freshman, sophomore year, my dad actually had a stroke. So then he became half paralyzed. So then my family went from upper middle class down to low income because now my mom was the head of the family now because my dad couldn't do nothing. He couldn't even speak. So that was what led to the financial struggles. And then for a couple of years in high school, I used to see my mom call the banks up in the middle of the night asking for loans because my mom was more of a housewife. She did work as a maid as a side job just to bring extra money. But my dad was the main source of income. He was the main provider for the family. And that was just seeing your mom struggle was what made me wanna look for more sources of income.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't just relax and enjoy my life like all these other kids. And so then I was looking through every way, and then I found Forex, and through that I thought this is the only way I can actually help my mom, help her relieve some of that stress that she was going through.
So obviously going through that, it's very interesting you say that, because literally I've spoken to 2 other traders on the podcast, same exact situation. Their father had a stroke. I think it was grandfather for one, father for the other, and it created this sense of urgency and responsibility. And was that a huge pivotal moment? Obviously such a negative, of course, but was that such a pivotal moment, obviously, in your journey, having this responsibility and seeing this struggle, and obviously experiencing this struggle too, that created this urge, even though maybe you didn't know about trading at the time, but then when you came across something that then was the root, is that what allowed you to sort of have that focus and that drive that most people who are a bit more comfortable won't have?
Yeah, so my dad was actually a very strict person. So I used to have curfews. I used to have to get 4.0 GPA, like good grades. And then when my dad had a stroke, my mom was more lenient. She didn't really care. She was more focused on taking care of my dad than my grades. Obviously, she did care about my grades, but she wasn't as strict as my dad. So that gave me a little more freedom. And with freedom, you can actually do whatever you want. So I used to come home late. I used to have a bunch of friends. Having friends was actually what helped me get through all of that. And then throughout the end of high school, I knew that I had to help my mom. Like I mentioned previously, I can't let her stress out for the next 4 to 5 years. It's not going to work out like that, because just money. So the thing with money is, when you have no money, money is everything. So that was the biggest problem. That was the biggest problem. And when my dad had a stroke, like I mentioned, I couldn't take the traditional path anymore. I had to make money. And that's what actually led me to the start of this journey. That's what gave me the motivation. When I had times that I wanted to quit, I just couldn't quit. Because then if I quit now, then my parents are going to stay, my mom's going to stay stressed forever. So having that strong why was what helped me get to where I am today. If I didn't have that why, if my dad didn't have that stroke, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it has its pros and cons of the bad stuff in your life has its pros and cons. It's not always negative.
100%.
So I would 100% say that I'm here today because of what my dad went through. I'm here today because of seeing my parents struggle, seeing my mom go through all that.
No, 100%. And, it's interesting you say that in terms of like the balance, the huge negative, but it led to, in essence, creating a positive, which is where you are today. In terms of then, obviously, that trading journey, you have this strong why, you see this struggle with your parents and what they're experiencing, but then equally you're trying to trade, but you're blowing challenges consistently. What was that like in terms of your psychology, your mindset? How did you push through that? Were there, such dark thoughts as well?
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about our lifetime sponsor, Smart Funded Trader. Smart Funded Trader is brought to you by myself, Life of Paladin, and Omar Agag. Just as I've taken over the podcast space, we are now here to take over the prop firm space. Smart Funded Trader has no maximum trading days. No maximum trading days. I know, it's insane. And that's how it should be. You shouldn't have to hit a target in a certain amount of time. So with Smart Funded Trader, you don't have to. You can take 1 month. You could take 6 months. It's no problem. The target is just 8%. 8%. Can you achieve that in 6 months? I think you can. So you're probably thinking about drawdown. So you have 5% daily, but a 10% overall drawdown. 10%, taking things up another level, as promised. You can also get max funded up to 400,000 with Smart Funded Trader. 400,000, and you can scale it to $2 million. $2 million. I'm blowing my own mind, I swear. So we only have 3 minimum trading days. So free on the challenge, free on the verification, so you can get funded within 6 days. With Smart Funded Trader, you can hold trades over the weekend. So whether you're a scalper, or whether you're a day trader, or whether you're a swing trader, it does not matter. We are here for every trader. Now, I know you're excited to be funded with Smart Funded Trader. The incredible launch offer that we're doing here at Smart Funded Trader is going to be 15% off. 15% off every challenge. as part of that as well, we're going to give 90% profit split for those who do get funded, as well as 125% refund on your challenge fee on your first payout. So the link in the description is below. Type in your email so that you can be the first one to know.
So my parents were in India and I was living here by myself. I moved 4 times within the span of 2 years. Wow. So for a couple of months, I stayed in Brooklyn. For a couple of months, I stayed in Flushing. And the Flushing area, the reason I moved to Flushing was because I had actually blown a lot of money. I put a lot of money into a regular broker and I lost everything. So I moved to Flushing. I stayed in one room, sharing that in a bunk bed. So I had the top bunk, my friend had the bottom bunk. We were paying $340 a month. It was a 4-bedroom apartment, all strangers, just me and my friend sharing one room. Then the next time I moved to another place in Woodside, New York, in a basement with shared strangers. And when I just kept blowing everything, when I had barely any money in my bank account, I barely had any social interactions. It was very hard. That was the first time I ever felt true pain. So my entire life from up till the age of 18, I've always had friends. I've never felt what loneliness was.
Yeah.
And then for the first time in this journey, I felt loneliness. And loneliness is one of the worst things you can possibly feel. Seeing someone, feeling the death of someone in your family, that hurts. But I found that loneliness is the worst feeling of them all, especially when you're going through that with no hope for the future. I got to a point where, not that I wanted to take my life, but I just didn't care. I felt numb for months and months when I had that blown account, when I barely had any friends, when I lost my hope, but I was still in college. And I remember one time I was in the train going back to my job, to the doorman job. It was the end of the day, actually. I remember one time I was in the train going home from my doorman job. And this was back then during the time of Asian Lives Matter in New York City. So, like, they were pushing Asian people on the train tracks.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very, like, common. They were, like, Asian Lives Matter and all that. And I remember I used to stand on the yellow line of the MTA tracks. And I used to just stand there and just watch the train go by. A lot of people, because I was at a point in my life where, like, I don't care if anyone pushed me. So I was just standing there, just numb. Also in the train, one time I was just looking at somebody and he looked back at me and we were just having a staring contest. And this was back then when I was numb, when I didn't feel nothing. And I was just staring deep into his eyes, and eventually he got off the next stop. And I was just at a very, very low point where numbness, loneliness, no future. But I just kept pushing and pushing because I knew I had to retire my parents or at least help them.
So was it an essence of, like, you didn't want to do it yourself in terms of, like, take your own life in that sense or put an end to it yourself, but you were almost numb in the sense that if someone was to do it to you, you wouldn't mind. Like, you were kind of standing on the line saying, hey, if someone pushed me here, they pushed me, I'm not going to stop them, or you're staring at the sky, if he does something, I don't care. Like, I'll just let it happen because you're feeling such, nothing. You're not feeling anything, and you're struggling through this process. Your family's struggling over here. You're struggling, you're not getting the results. So was it that feeling that I would just invite anything right now?
Exactly that feeling. I got to a point where I understood, okay, now I understood why people take their lives. Because when you're at that point, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. When you're at that point, everything is just darkness. You don't see the future. But eventually, if you keep going through it, you'll eventually see that tiny light. And you gotta keep pushing. You can't. If I had taken my life back then I wouldn't be in the position where I am right now. I wouldn't have been able to provide for my family, be able to help my friends, be able to provide value to others. So it's all about just persevering, and just remember, it may be cloudy today, but the sun will eventually shine in the future.
What was that like for you then? What was it that sort of showed you that spark?
I just kept persevering. I channeled all of that into actually doing an Ironman. Which is a race where you have to swim 2.4 miles, run 112 miles, bicycle 112 miles, and run 26.2 miles. Because I was 3 years into my journey. I read so many books, so many motivation, and here I am, an average kid, or not even average, accomplished nothing with my life. And I was just watching a Joe Rogan podcast with Courtney DeWalter, who is an ultra runner. And at that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna accomplish my first accomplishment. I'm gonna have my first accomplishment. And that was the Ironman. So I was doing Ironman, college, and trading on the side as well.
So you think that was the spark then? So listening to this podcast, was it something that in particular that they said or talked about that kind of pushed you to say, okay, I want to try that. I want to try that, but I'm going to do that?
I was just listening to the podcast and I was fascinated by it. I'm like, oh my God, she can run 100 miles. And I thought to myself, maybe I can accomplish that. Maybe I can be great. Like, I'm 3 years into the journey and I'm nothing.
100%. So like, it's interesting you say that. So you went from literally feeling numb, feeling down, feeling the worst you've ever been, to feeling motivated to achieve something. And it wasn't even in trading, something outside of trading. Was it the essence of the Ironman being so hard, so difficult, and not many, if any, people can complete and get to that sort of level of endurance and self-discipline and be able to handle that much pain? Do you think it was almost a challenge to yourself to say, I can achieve that level, far beyond what an average person would do?
When I set out that goal, I didn't believe in myself that I could even do it. I was a couple months in and I was running on a treadmill, struggling to do 5 miles. And I'm thinking here, I have to run the whole marathon after all that 112 miles of bicycling. And here I can't even run 5 miles. So I was just telling myself, I will prove myself wrong. I've been through a lot. I've been through so much pain. Most kids my age, I'm 21 years old, haven't been through this type of pain. And I will finally succeed. And it was basically just my ego, because I've been feeding my ego since the start of the entrepreneur journey. Like I mentioned, I read all these motivational talk and I've been studying, reading, and here I am, a nobody. You're a nobody and you've been here for years and years talking about being great. So now's my only chance to prove to myself that I can accomplish something, that I'm not average. So my Ironman was my first accomplishment that proved to me that I could make it in other fields. I literally did not believe in myself one bit in that Ironman, but like I mentioned prior, I knew that pain and all that, I could channel it into accomplishing this goal.
It's incredible. It's incredible to hear. And I know the difficulty and the fact that even people who do train for it struggle, on there. And the fact that you then did that. So that was the spark. That was like, so you proved to yourself you could do something. Exactly. You proved and you accomplished something. So then was it after that translating or channeling that same energy and drive then, and now the new self-belief into the trading side?
Yeah, so after I accomplished that, everything went up, everything spiraled up.
Incredible.
So it was interesting. So I accomplished the Ironman. A couple months later down the road, I was able to get that 400K funded account. The discipline and consistency required, because it took me from couch to Ironman, it took me 13 months. So it requires consistency. It requires discipline. It's not easy to do an Ironman without training consistently.
Cool.
And once I accomplished that Ironman, the next 3 months I was funded with FTMO. I was able to withdraw 40K, my first payout, and everything just went up spiraling from then on.
Incredible. So it's very interesting because some people might hear that and just take the 3 months, for example, be like, oh, you got consistent in 3 months, right? When in reality, we're adding on all the other stuff that we just talked about. But even just that 13 months. So that 13 months when it came to training for the Ironman, was it every single day? In terms of, you might not literally run every day, for example, but in terms of consistency and the everyday actions were in line with, here's the Ironman day. And as you said, from couch to there, 13 months. But every day inside that 13 months, you were mindful of, I need to achieve this task, right? Was that what it was every single day?
My mind was just on that Ironman and trading. Those are the only two main focuses in my life. With Ironman, because I want to accomplish something for once in my life, not be just a talker. And then trading to help retire my parents.
Of course.
But the funny thing is with trading, though, it started off with retiring my parents. And eventually it just transitioned to trying to make it out by myself, trying to actually have a life to live for. So it was interesting because I was at one point broke, busted, disgusted, and my only path out was making money, was actually leveling up. That's the only way I saw myself actually living the life I want to live, because I can't continue to live in the basement. I can't ask my parents for money to pay for rent. I was on my own for all of this. So that's why Ironman and trading was the only two focuses in my life at that point.
Amazing. And it's very interesting though. So that compound effect. So before that, let's say before the Ironman came along, you were still passionate about trading, you wanted it to work, but were you consistent every single day with your effort? Or was it like, I was on it, I was off it, maybe, you had a run for it, blew an account, blew a challenge, break for a week or two, whatever it may be, sometimes longer. Was that what it was like before the Ironman?
I was always trading. The thing is, there were some times where I wouldn't really focus on it too much though. There were some weeks where maybe I only placed 1 trade or 2 trades, or some days I didn't look at the charts just because I was too busy with work or other aspects. But I was always on trading. I never took a big break from it.
Okay. So then, but with the Ironman segment, those 13 months, you were dedicated and in temple to make sure you were trading, make sure you were training for the Ironman. And then do you think it was the compound effect then of all that work consistently, and being very, very focused and driven for that consistent amount of time that then led to shortly after the Ironman having the funded account, getting the payout, and then, of course, scaling from there?
100%. I believe that's what built my mindset. So I went from an undisciplined, unorganized person to a disciplined, consistent person. Just basically, I developed the characteristics required to become a successful trader through that 13-month span.
100%. And, you mentioned one thing there where you said about, living with strangers, and in a basement or in a bunk bed. What was that like? Because obviously, a lot of people, they won't experience that, right? They will experience, going through high school, college, university, and, either living at home or living in student accommodation, so actually like dorms, I think they call it here. And they're having fun, they're partying, they got their own rooms, and that's what their reality is for those young years. While yours was obviously very different of struggle and grind and living with people you don't even know, sharing a room. So what was that like, obviously having, knowing that other people are doing this, or what the normal way would be to, have this sort of pleasure and fun time versus obviously you going through this harder time, this as you said, loneliness already. What was that, trying to handle that in the moment?
Yeah, it was very depressing. That's also the reason why I stopped looking at social media. It's hard when you're at such a low level and you're on TikTok or Instagram looking at kids your age, or Snapchat, my friends having fun in college, partying. It's very hard. So I deleted all my social media from just not being, because comparing my life to people my age, it was very, very depressing.
Nice to imagine.
So I just made a new Instagram with just business, with just people who are on the same journey as me.
Definitely. How beneficial was that for you then? So you kind of removed this element of comparing and then created a new sort of page, if you will, a new channel of focusing on what you wanted to see, what would be beneficial for you. Was it quite a decent, methodology, if you will, of trying to focus and stay focused on the goal?
Yeah, so my mind was just on trying to survive with the doorman job, paying my rent, Ironman, and trading. So the amount of interactions I had during those years were less than 10. And I actually got lucky that I had a doorman job, because doorman job requires social interaction with other people. So I was able to actually talk, and that actually somewhat got me out of the depression.
Okay.
So if I didn't have that doorman job, if I had a job where it didn't require no type of talking or no type of social interaction, that would have been even worse.
Because that loneliness would have just felt even more.
That job really helped me, because I was also able to build connections with people in that building.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, actually. So, doorman job, you probably met some very interesting people. Was there anything in particular you may have learned from some people you interacted with?
Yeah, so a lot of I would say upper class people, they like to run, and I actually met someone in that building who was a 3-time Ironman.
Okay.
And he was the reason why I was able to actually accomplish it, because he kept me accountable to actually accomplish the goal. If I was just by myself thinking I'm gonna do an Ironman, and then the hard days come and I'm like, screw that dream. There's a saying that Goggins says, David Goggins, he says, dreams die while suffering. So it's easy to say, I'm gonna accomplish this, accomplish that. But once you're doing it, once you feel that suffering, that pain, then that dream goes away quickly. So that doorman job, I was able to build a connection with someone in that building who was an Ironman. He kept me accountable. He actually gave me my first running watch. He gave me for a bicycle tracker. He was very supportive of me in this journey, and that's the only reason why I was able to become an Ironman.
That's incredible. It just goes to show, look, like we don't always do things alone, and that you can meet people when you weren't even trying, right? You just got this job, and then did you have to put yourself out there to talk to this individual? As in like kind of interact with them? Because I'm sure you didn't know he was an Ironman, champion just by looking at him or just him walking past you. You know what I mean? So did you have to kind of be active in socializing a bit, which probably would have been hard given all that loneliness before that?
So my building was a very friendly building. I interacted with everyone in that building. I built connection with mostly everyone there. He actually had an Ironman tattoo. So then that's how I was like, oh, you're an Ironman? He's like, yeah. And I told him I'm doing an Ironman next year. And then from then on, we built that connection. We followed each other on this running app called Strava, which we can see each other's activities.
Okay.
And then from then on, he kept me accountable. And yeah.
Did you have anyone for accountability in trading side of things?
Trading, I had no one in trading. All my friends who I started with in trading, they all gave up. I've had friends now who see my success. Now they're back in trading because of that. They got motivated because of that.
Classic.
But the entire journey, I've been on my own. Maybe in the beginning when I'm first starting, obviously I was in some groups in Discord, but during that 13-month span, I was by myself.
Okay. And were there any sort of trades? I know obviously, you've had an interview with ICT before, so you've taken parts from that style, of course. But were there any traders along that journey other than ICT, for example, who you may have followed or had influence from?
Yeah, so ICT was the first guy I found, and then ICT doesn't do live session. He wasn't as active on YouTube as he is now in 2022. So I discovered Gene, which I'm sure you know of.
Gene, the legend, yeah.
Yeah, so he was doing live sessions Tuesday to Thursdays. So I would just hop on those live sessions and watch ICT. And that's how I was able to develop my technical analysis.
Yep.
With the psychology part, I give all my credit to Mark Douglas.
The legend, the trading in the zone. In terms of sort of psychology then, was it a pivotal moment of you? It seems like it anyway. Obviously, when you achieved that Ironman contest, you had that accomplishment. You now had proof of your hard work resulting in something, and now you had this probably stronger self-belief. Was there a shift in your psychology though, after you accomplished the Ironman competition, to then obviously getting funded and getting that payout? Was there a shift in your mindset towards trading? Did you treat it differently? Did you have a different tools or different way of trading after accomplishing that then had that result at the end of it?
What changed my psychology was actually just doing so many challenges and losing them. Just the experience of, why am I losing my challenges? How can I fix my weakness and improvise on those? That's what changed my psychology. On top of watching Mark Douglas' YouTube video, Mind Over Market, the best video out there, which I recommend a lot, and then Trading the Zone. Just those two resources on top of my experience. So when I would read those books or look at the resource or the sources of Mark Douglas, I would understand from my experience, oh, that makes sense why he says not every trade will hit your TP. Don't go into the markets thinking that your trade will hit TP because you'll over leverage or your emotions will make you lose your account. So it was experience, and on top of reading credible sources on psychology.
Okay. So was it a case where obviously you're reading these credible sources and you may have read it before you've had the experience. Then you go and have the experience and then you relate it back to the credible source. So that was like, okay, now it clicks for me. Now I can actually learn that lesson I was essentially could have been taught earlier, but because I lacked experience, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't actually take on board that lesson. Was that the case?
Exactly. So when I started the journey, I read Trading the Zone because everyone recommends that, Trading the Zone. And then I did not gain any type of value from it. Okay, it says not to over leverage, or it says not to it gives a bunch of information which we don't really apply it because we don't understand.
Exactly.
We don't have the experience. Once I went through all my trials and tribulation, once I gained that experience, I read the book again. I'm like, okay, that makes so much sense. Then I went through a little more experience and I read it again. I'm like, oh, I just got a new information, a new nugget from it. So every time I read the book, after years of having some experience, it changes.
Definitely. I know that you like to read, Is it a case where you're reading loads of different books, or is it a case where you read new books, but you're quite, going over the same ones over and over again to extract as much information as possible? What sort of mindset do you have towards reading?
Yeah, so I just like to have a couple of books and just rotate around them.
Okay.
Because we don't need any more new information. I feel like a lot of us will read a book, but we don't understand what we're reading. We just skim through it, and then next week we forget what's in that book. Whereas for me, my collection of books, I understand every chapter. I understand what's in that book. That's what I recommend, to not just skim through a book. Reading a book is not just reading through it and then you finish and go on to the next. You have to annotate. You have to take notes. You have to read and understand it apply it to real life experience. Okay, why is he saying this? How can I apply this? That's how I read. It takes me hours sometimes to read just a chapter of a book.
Yeah.
Just because I'm thinking on it, I'm annotating on it, I'm writing it down.
100%. No, it makes sense because I think a lot of people, they read for the sake of reading, They think, oh, if I read, I'll be more successful, rather than actually trying to understand the lessons. And a lot of people assume that just, from reading, every single word or every single page is going to be valuable. When in essence, sometimes you might not even resonate with a particular writer. I've done that where I've started reading a book and loads of people love this book, very popular book, a best-selling book, but you just don't resonate with the writing style, While versus Napoleon Hill, for example, Think and Grow Rich, I love his style. So when I read any of his books, I can read all of them and really enjoy them and take away from it because I love the style of writing. Versus, I don't have an example of someone whose writing style I don't resonate with, but if I was to read their book, I won't take much away from it. I'll be like forcing it, So it's really good to hear. Obviously, we talked about prop firms. In terms of prop firms, you said, how much did you say last year, 2022?
250,000.
250,000 is incredible. And, to think, obviously, before that, you were, as you're saying, making, on a good day, $150 from Uber Eats and then having to pay rent, of course, having to pay your bills, of course. So therefore, that may sound like a lot, but in essence, at the end of the day, how much will you be left over, let's say, at the end of the week or month?
Exactly.
After your expenses, probably very little. And then you're having to put that into challenges and you're losing those challenges. So the huge change, what was it like, having that feeling then suddenly, from literally negative or zero balance to 250,000 in a single year?
It was really interesting how literally everything, it all clicked and it all changed in that instant. I was just, let's see, how was I feeling? I was, first off, grateful for it.
Of course.
And then second, I was just glad that it all paid off. Once again, I proved to myself with the Ironman, and here I am now proving to myself that I can actually make it with trading. So it just feels good that I keep on accomplishing what I say I'm going to do. And going back to the Ironman was the first indicator that I can actually do what I say I'm going to do.
Definitely. And if you were to compare then, let's just talk about this for a moment. If you were to compare, obviously, the trading routine or the trading habits, let's say, that you had when you were blowing the accounts versus the routine and habits that you had actually getting funded and profiting and withdrawing from accounts, what key differences can you see there? So, like, let's say, as an example, in case the question isn't clear, let's say if you, when you were blowing accounts, were you over trading? Were you rushing? Were you, not being disciplined versus, what were you doing obviously on the other side?
Yeah, I was definitely over trading in the beginning. All of us want to get funded quick. We all want to make money quick. But that mindset is what actually makes us blow the account. It was at the point where I took trading as more of a side income, didn't really focus on it too much, didn't really care about making money from it, where I was able to actually make money from it. So it was really interesting how my psychology shifted when I was no longer just, I need to make money from this trade, I need to pay my bills, to where it's fine if I don't win this trade. It's fine if I don't make money from trading.
So because obviously you've taken away this need, this really aggressive need that trading has to work, I have to make money from trading, and suddenly you had folk, you're still passionate about trading, you still want it to work, but you had obviously your job, you had your education, you had other things that you were focused on as well. And as you said, treating it like side income, was that a huge shift then in terms of the results?
Yeah.
Incredible. And, I know that you are very passionate about prop firms. They've paid you 250,000 last year. Well, you've earned, should I say, you profited 250,000 would be the right way of saying it. So you're passionate about prop firms, is that right to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so for that love of prop firms, obviously I can see on your top there, Smart Funded Trader. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've been doing challenges with so many different prop firms. When I started in 2020 with FTMO, they required 10% in 4 weeks. And that was the main reason why I was blowing so much money. I don't believe it's realistic to make 10% in 4 weeks because there's NFP week, there's news throughout the weeks. And now with the experience of knowing that the spreads on these brokers are really high, with being slipped, with the pressure of having to make 10% in 4 weeks or 8%, I've decided to partner with a couple of reliable investors. And through that, we've been able to find the best brokers with raw spreads. We've been able to have unlimited trading days. So you don't have to make 10% in 4 weeks. You can trade as long as you want. And if I had that back then, I would definitely be in a much better position. I wouldn't have lost so much money. I wouldn't have been negative in my bank account. So with my prop firm is we want to have the best in all type of experience with the brokers, with the spreads, with the slippage, with the trading days. And through that, if we can also influence these other prop firms to become unlimited trading days as well, that can be a huge shift in the market. We can see much more profitable traders. So that's the main focus on this new prop firm that's coming out.
Definitely. And obviously, at the end of the day, you've had both the negative and the positive experience from prop firms, right? And, you've experienced the blessing of what they can provide you. As they always say, use the prop firms to build your capital, and you've managed to do that. And therefore, coming into the space, are you actually quite excited to have your own, and to, as you say, like change and make change in the space?
I'm super excited for it because I know the amount of value and the amount of people who can actually make money from it. People have the skill, but sometimes they have that requirement they have to make in a month, which makes them lose their money. With this, if you are patient, I believe that prop firm is basically a game from transferring money from the impatient to the patient. If you are a patient trader, if you have the characteristics of a successful day trader, you can get funded with Smart Funded Trader easily.
Definitely. No, definitely. And it sounds incredible. And, we're very excited for this. When this episode launches, to be fair, I'm not sure when it will launch, but hopefully, when we're looking at timeline wise,
mid-May to late May.
Yeah, maybe you will launch that then. Maybe we'll drop the episode in time for you. But what's the future looking like then? Obviously, you're still funded at the moment. 7 figures funded as well. And are you still looking to scale further? Are you looking to what is the goal? What is the vision right now?
My goal for 2023 is to end the year with 3 to 5 million in prop firm capital. On top of that, build the company, build this prop firm to become the number one prop firm in the industry. Build this prop firm to a point where we influence all these other prop firms to change their time to unlimited day trading. Because I want to see other traders win. I want to see other traders have success in trading. It's a very hard industry, and having these requirements is not fair to these traders. It's kind of predatory in a sense. So if I can build this company up and influence these other prop firms as well to change to unlimited trading day, and on top of that, have 3 to 5 million prop firm capital, and just keep building my trading portfolio so I can have big months on top of that, that's just my goal for 2023.
Incredible. And I'm sure, no doubt, that you will smash it out. Absolutely. And in terms of, I've always talked about competition, for example, obviously you do social media, you put out a lot of incredible value on YouTube. The editing style is really, really good, and the way that you portray the information as well is very good as well, and I'm sure that, you have a sense of competition there. People who might be trying to copy your style, people who might even copy the exact video, for example. Obviously in trading, you don't really get competition in that sense. It doesn't matter if someone gets the same trade or you trade as you or not. But obviously entering the prop firm space now, the competition is insane, right? And what are your thoughts towards that, though, in terms of the competition? Does it worry you? Does it motivate you?
Let me just stop you for a moment there, guys, because I want to tell you about our other sponsor, and I have partnered with, and I'm very excited to tell you about this one, TradeZella. Now, as someone who's a trader and myself, I learned how important journaling is. Now, I only wish I had a software like this. Now, it is going to revolutionize the trading journey. I cannot wait for you guys to check out TradeZella. TradeZella is the most in-depth automated journal I've seen. You can now connect with MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. So it's available for everyone, whether you trade options or whether you trade prop firms or your own personal account. Now, a task that everyone finds annoying, journaling their trades, which is yet so important. Everyone needs to journal their trades. They need the data, but yet very few people do it. Why? Because of the struggle. And that is what TradeZella is here to fix for you. It goes into such depth into your trading and your statistics that you'll be able to see every element of your trading. If you want to have different strategies, you can create different playbook. If you want to be able to review a trade, you can actually replay it so that it will show you the price action as if it was live. You'll be able to see the best performing days, the worst performing days. The depth is unreal. I am extremely confident that even from the beginner trader to the advanced trader will find TradeZella absolutely game-changing. The level of detail that it will provide you on your trades is insane. Even things that I'd never thought of were available on TradeZella. Suddenly you're going to be able to see the patterns in what you can improve to be the best prop firm trader possible. That is the TradeZella team, and that is why I am happy to be sponsored by them. Check out the code below, Riz10, for 10% off your TradeZella subscription. The link is in the description, and let's get back to the episode.
Well, with the competition, I love competition, and I always want to be the best in whatever I do. So with the competition, it'll just motivate me to keep on pushing the platform up. It'll keep me motivated to keep posting content. It'll keep me motivated to just make the product better and better. Without competition, you get lazy, you get complacent. So even with trading or even with growing my brand, I like to somewhat compete with other influencers just so it keeps me motivated.
Yeah, 100%. Because I've had the same with the podcast. You know, the exact same thing where obviously when I was coming in, there wasn't really much of a in-person anyway podcast scene to compare to. But now obviously that this has grown to the scale it has, there's people doing the same thing. They're trying to replicate, try and do their own, which is cool. And it does the exact same feeling where you could either sit there and be sort of sour about it, negative about it, and be like, oh, why are they copying me? Why are they doing this? When in reality, it's great because now, okay, if they do better than you, it means you're not elevating, you're getting stagnant, you're getting complacent. So it's a great metric, if you will, to compare, like, how are you doing? How much value are you actually presenting? How much are you trying to grow and evolve? And you have that same mentality with the prop firm then, I'm guessing?
100%.
100%. What sort of, do you have any sort of plans in place already that you're looking, in regards to the prop firm? Have you got any sort of details you can share?
The prop firms, all I can see right now is just the foundation to what's coming next. I want to provide as much value as I can to traders, help them actually make money from these markets. So just stay tuned for the prop firm, and whatever comes after is going to be amazing as well.
Definitely. Now, in terms of like value then, I've seen that you put out like the prop firm blueprint. Essentially, you put out a video saying that this is exactly how I made 250,000 from the prop firms, right? And, is that your strategy then, exactly how you use it?
Yeah, 100%. Every content that I put out there is all original. I don't really take anybody else's content. I just give value based off my experience, what worked for me, what doesn't work for me, what I've seen with other traders.
No, definitely. And, sometimes I get this a lot. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but people say to me, like, how do you make content and trade as well? How do you have time for both, etc.? What do you say to that? How do you do it?
As a day trader, we only trade a couple of hours in the morning. We have the rest of the day free. So there's plenty of time to do content. And you shouldn't actually be doing content if you're not credible enough. That's why as a full-time day trader, when I put myself into a position where I can actually day trade full-time, now I've set myself enough time to create content. So that's how I'm able to create content and trade at the same time.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, you didn't start really putting content out there, in terms of like value, like video-wise. I know you've been tweeting your journey for a long time, but in terms of like making videos, you didn't do that until towards the end of 2022?
I never even planned on doing it, to be honest, but one time I was on Twitter and I just posted my FTMO payout. It blew up.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I had people messaging, how did you do it? Show me how you did it. Give me some advice. And then I started posting a little bit on Twitter here and there. It started blowing up as well. I posted another payout consistently in 2022. I was posting 5-6 payouts throughout the year. And then that's how I was able to grow my brand. And then at that point, I decided that, okay, let me become a content creator. Let me help other traders in this journey and try my best to get them to a point where I'm at.
How does it feel then, obviously, reflecting back now, where you went from literally zero, struggling, sleeping in a basement with other people, not having really much funds, blowing accounts, to quite the opposite? You've made 6 figures, $250,000 is no small amount, right? $250,000, right? So then, being an inspiration to others, teaching others, helping others, right? Starting a prop firm now to be able to actually give traders a chance, right, of being funded, right? And helping your family, no doubt, as well. Like, how does it feel doing that comparison?
It feels great, but it also feels like this is just a start. I see myself becoming a much bigger brand. Currently, I'm only 21 years old. So that's the best part of it all. I just think to myself, I'm 21 years old. Imagine when I'm 30, if I keep consistently doing what I'm doing, if I don't give up, I can basically, in a sense, change the world, in my point of view.
No, definitely. Definitely. I think, thinking small is very dangerous. And especially, as you say, you're 21 years old. So I think that's scary to me. That's scary to me because when I think when I was 21, I think I was 21 when I found trading. So it's you are essentially the next generation in this space, and the potential is uncapped. The ceiling is wherever you want to put it. and I'm very, very excited to see what you do. And in terms of obviously that difference, that feeling that difference as well, as you say, you don't really, you see that you want to do more, right? You're not happy with what you've got now. Well, not happy, but you're not, say, content with just what you have now. You're grateful for it, but you want more, right? And you can achieve more. Is an element of that, though. Was there any complacency that came in when you started to see these bigger payouts, and starting to see this recognition? Was there any complacency, a bit of a slowdown that potentially may have happened and you caught it?
100%. When I decided to go full-time day trading, and I wasn't really content creating, I was posting tweets here and there. But the rest of the day, I was free. I was no longer trading for an Ironman. I was finally making thousands of dollars in the market in the morning. What am I supposed to do for the rest of the day? I would get complacent. And I remember I recorded a video of myself just hitting myself like, why are you getting complacent? Stop. And it's funny, until I started doing content creating, I started opening up other businesses, I was able to finally get back on track. And that's why my accomplishments, it's not, I remember when I was training for my Ironman, I used to think I'm gonna be an Ironman one day. It'll be so great. When I became one, the next month, I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
You hit a goal, but it doesn't really satisfy you. After a couple of months, it just goes away. So I just keep aiming for bigger and bigger goals. Chasing the goal is what makes it the most amount of fun, not hitting the goal.
So the journey itself.
The journey itself.
Yeah, no, incredible. And I think that's what a lot of people need to learn. Because I remember when I got my first payout from FTMO, and it was a large one as well, I had assigned all of this, this success, the title of success, that I've made it, to having a large payout. So when it happened, and nothing changed, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, I had these more numbers in the bank account, and yeah, I felt, maybe I could buy some stuff, but at the end of the day, nothing else changed. I always give the analogy, I still had bills to pay, I still had to wash the dishes, for example, I still had to, speak to people and do whatever, all these things, nothing else changed. So I actually went through a little anxious period. How about for yourself? Because obviously you've been chasing this goal for so long, like trying to get consistency, get the payouts. When you finally got those payouts start rolling in, what was it like? Was it a bit of a shock to the system?
Yeah, I was just questioning my life, to be honest, because trading doesn't really provide any value to the real world. So I'm just here making money. My parents are finally good. They don't have to really stress about money anymore. And I was just wondering, what's the point of my life, until I found my purpose, which was to just help as many people as I can. So I believe that the more I grow, the more people I can help.
Incredible.
So through that's what keeps me elevating. That's what keeps me hitting the next goal. I just think if I can become really, really big, I can help more and more people.
Wow. No, that's really good to hear. And, you talked about helping your parents there. What was it? When did you finally tell them that you dropped out of college and everything like that?
I would say a couple months ago.
Really? What was that conversation like?
At that point, when they saw the money, they didn't really care anymore.
Were you a bit scared that they would find out? Obviously, I know they were living outside the country, but in case they found out beforehand, before the success?
So like I mentioned previously, my mom was a little more lenient.
Yeah.
She was more focused on my dad at that point. So they weren't really as strict. But if my dad was here, he would go crazy. He'd be like, what'd you do?
And I saw on your story recently, and you mentioned other businesses, like you'd invested in real estate and property over in India, right? What was that endeavor? Was that something that you kind of already planned, or is it something that's just come along?
Yeah, so basically my parents have land in India, but they have no money, so they can't really do nothing on that land. They can't build nothing. So with the funds I received from my profit withdrawals, I've decided to fund a hotel there as a source of income. So through that, I give some of my money. So through that, my parents basically have a source of income now.
Yeah.
So they don't really have to work.
That's incredible. It just goes to show, like, isn't that the essence of what you want to do with your trading profits? Like, what to people out there who are making trading profits or payouts, what would you say to them in terms of how to use that?
I would 100% just say invest it back into yourself. Buy more challenges, get more capital. The more capital you have, the more money you can make in a day. And keep investing it. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says the formula is earn income, goes into income generating assets, and then that creates passive income. And through passive income, then you can buy your luxuries and liabilities. Definitely. So that's the rule I live by.
I like that. No, I love that. And in terms of, people having these payouts, and we talked about obviously ICT, and which is obviously SMC, which is, as you know, a huge, sort of hype at the moment. Well, I say hype at the moment. It's been a hype for a while now.
Yeah.
But one thing I've recognized with yourself, though, is that your risk to reward, it's not like, crazy high. which I know a lot of people, I believe personally, make the mistake of doing in SMC, right? They try to get 1 to 10s, 20s, hundreds, whatever it may be. But yet you've done 250,000 in payouts with what I imagine would be like close to 1 to 1s, 2s, 3s. Is that right?
Exactly. Mainly just 1 to 2, because the way I saw it is the more capital I can get, risking 0.5% on $1 million or a 7-figure capital is you're risking, I believe, 5,000 to make 10,000 off of 1 to 2. And a 1 to 2 is more guaranteed than a 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. So that's why I just stick with 1 to 2. And also it just helps me get out of that losing streak quicker, because in a losing streak, that's when we lose hope. That's when our psychology is messed up. So those 2 reasons are the main reasons why I stick with 1 to 2.
Did you find that your strike rate was higher because of the smaller risk to reward?
Definitely, it definitely got higher because I was trying to find the perfect balance. 1 to 1 was a little too low, and 1 to 3 was, my strike rate wasn't as high, but a 1 to 2 risk to reward was a perfect amount. I always say to my students, out of 10 trades, if you only hit TP 5 out of 10, you're up 5% if you're risking 1%, which is pretty good.
So was it, as you said earlier, you got these FTMO, for example, and the other prop firms that have 10% in a month. I mean, we say a month and we say 4 weeks, but in reality, it's like 20 trading days, Monday to Friday. And then if you're doing a 1 to 2 risk to reward, was it difficult? Did you have to be a bit aggressive, obviously, and sort of have this feeling of, my time's running out, so I need to get these trades?
Yeah, that's one problem with it. It forces you to get into dumb trades because you only have a couple of weeks left. The thing with FTMO, or the thing with prop firm challenges, the ones that have a time limit, what I say is it sort of requires some sort of luck. Because say, for example, you buy a challenge and the market conditions aren't the best, now you're screwed. And say now you buy a challenge, but now you're on a winning streak and you just won all the challenges, you passed the verification. So that's why I say you got to try to figure out what the market conditions is. And you might get lucky, you might not get lucky. So luck has some sort of factor to it.
Okay, definitely. And but going through that process is what inspired this smart funded trader endeavor, so that you can create that change in the industry.
Exactly. So at this point with unlimited trading days, you don't need that luck. If the market conditions are not good, don't trade. Wait for next week. Wait for next month. Once the market conditions are back, once you see A+ trade setups, then you can execute, and through that you can get funded. You can actually be a real day trader. You can actually be making profits.
Yeah, definitely. It's incredible. And I know that you talked to me about Smart Funded Trader a couple of weeks ago, to be fair, before we came out here. And it sounds incredible. What I love most about the idea behind it as well is that obviously these prop firms that we see, FTMO, MFF, all of these different prop firms that everyone knows about, and there's new ones every day, is that 9 times out of 10, if not all of them, don't have a name to them. They don't actually have a name to them. They're not run by traders. It's just a company. And then, you don't get me wrong, they provide a service, and people have been funded like yourself, and you get your payouts, etc. But there's no essence of community, real community. There's not an actual person behind it that we can say, hey, this guy trades. This guy understands what it means to be a trader. This guy understands what it means to lose and become successful, right? I think that's a massive benefit. What is that another reason why you wanted to do it?
So one thing is, as a prop firm trader, I know what works best and what doesn't work best. A lot of these new prop firms or these older prop firms, they don't really have that point of view from a prop firm trader himself. So basically this company is run by prop firm traders too. So this company is prop firm traders to prop firm owners, providing the best type of customer service, best brokers, best slippage, everything the best. And through that, we are also able to provide value because we'll be able to do weekly calls. We will be able to provide value in the sense where these traders can actually pass these challenges and keep the funded accounts. So, yeah.
Definitely. And obviously you said about prop firm owners, right? Plural. So who else are you doing it with?
So currently we have Omar from Twitter. So I'm excited for that. And we're looking into another one.
Definitely. We'll see on what that's going to be like on the next episode, I guess. But I guess like at the end of the day, by the sounds of it, you're looking to just shape a different narrative when it comes to the prop firms, and create a different journey that hasn't been seen just yet. you know, and I think innovation is incredible. And as we said, we talked about competition earlier. Obviously, there's so many people starting prop firms now. There's so many prop firms already. You know, what are your thoughts in regards to that in terms of like, you know, you're starting at this time as well, but how do you see yourself being different and doing things better than everyone else?
Yeah, the thing with these new prop firms is everyone's saying there's a new prop firm every week, but I don't see any new prop firms. Maybe there's like one I see every month. A lot of these new prop firms, they come out, but can they actually pay out? Can they actually pay out on time? That's a big thing. I've noticed that in these new prop firms, they might not have enough funding to actually pay out. Whereas with Smart Funded Trader, we have an investor who has tens of millions of dollars as a liquidity pool to provide funding. So that's a big role in it. We've been trying to start this prop firm since January. So it's been a 5-month process trying to find brokers, trying to find that investor. So that's what differentiates us from all these new prop firms. I believe that credibility, reliability, actually paying out is the number one thing. And that's why I'm risking my whole reputation, my whole brand on this prop firm. If they don't pay out, that's on me. That's how much I trust this prop firm to actually be the number one prop firm, to actually help traders, to actually provide value and to pay out.
100%. And like we said earlier, you know, most of these prop firms have no face, right? There's no face. They're not traders, so they don't understand the actual journey. And as you said about payouts, a lot of them are starting and there's no infrastructure, right? They're just starting because they see it as a hype, you know, an easy way to you know, attract and make a brand. When in reality, you know, if you want to do things right and in the right way, as you said, you know, it's already been 5 months. I'm sure, no doubt, was there a way you could have just done it and started it within a couple of weeks or a month?
Oh, easily. You just find one broker, you use some type of technology software, and you can start it up easily. But the thing is, if you start that up and there's a problem with the back end, your whole brand is screwed. You're not paying out traders. You're basically screwing these traders, which is something I don't want to do. My purpose in life is not to make money off screwing other people.
Definitely. So like, it's quite the opposite by the sounds of it. Is obviously you want to create change. Where does that come from, do you think? Where do you feel like that motivational drive to help people comes from, you know, from your journey? Is there anything in particular?
I think it all comes from my mom. Okay. My mom was always, she's a Buddhist. So it's all, she always tells me growing up, oh, smile, help other people. And I believe that part of me, that part of her just translated into me.
Okay. And then obviously the passion from trading, you mix those together, and that's where that essence comes from. Well, it's incredible to hear. Now, we're coming towards the end of the episode here. And what I like to do is like quick fire questions, right? So I'll start with the one that I give to everyone, which is, if you could meet anyone in the past, in the past, right? It doesn't matter if they're famous or not, but anyone from the past that you could just spend time with, right? Learn from, spend time with, who would it be?
It would just be David Goggins, because 2021, when I was in that low point, it was just David Goggins I would study, read. That was the only person I felt that I could relate to, because he was able to channel his darkness to accomplish something great. And just being able to pick his mind. I'm still fascinated by the part that there's so many things he has accomplished, but the one thing that still gets me is him running 8 100-mile races 8 weekends in a row. So it would just be cool to pick his mind and just talk to him.
I think the most interesting thing about it, though, is that you have a unique perspective of actually doing an Ironman yourself. You know, so you know what that actually takes. Well, me, I know it sounds hard, right? And I know it probably is hard, but do I actually know how hard that really is, you know? So while you have that unique perspective of actually having that experience as well, but definitely I know Goggins, you know, incredible man, and you never know, we might have him on the podcast one day. I have to invite you on, you know?
For sure.
I don't think you would let me do it otherwise, you know?
What's funny was in 2019 in high school, there's something called a senior exit portfolio, where we basically do a project on someone, and that was David Goggins to me.
Really?
Because in high school, I actually wanted to be a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
So I've always had big dreams. At one point, I wanted to be an ER doctor. At one point, I wanted to be an NBA player. At one point, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And then I just found trading, and I stuck to that.
That's incredible. And, you know, how did you find that, though, then? We'll just quickly touch on that. How did you, you know, jumping between these different passions or dreams, you know? How was it for you, like, having these different ones? Why was it that trading you stuck to?
So my NBA and Navy SEAL dreams went down the line when I had a wrist injury.
Oh, okay.
So I have a torn wrist ligament. And then what happened to my dad, I knew I had to get money quick. And I found trading through IML. Someone recruited me. And then through that, I went through all that process to get to a point where I was able to be somewhat successful in trading.
I wonder if you're like the first IML trader to actually be a successful trader. I wonder, I wonder if you would be. That would be an interesting one. But regardless, my next question was actually because of the success with the prop firms, right? 250,000 in a single year. What would be your top 3 tips to traders out there to get funded?
So the first one is actually determine your safety net. With this challenge, can you afford another challenge? Can you afford to pay your bills? If not, go conservative on it. Don't have to risk everything and get funded in 1 week. Some people do that. People with bigger safety nets, they could potentially do that. My second thing is when you get funded, don't think that you made it, because that's just the start of another mountain. Getting funded and staying funded is another mountain, and it's really hard to consistently withdraw money. I think there's a statistic where most don't make it to their 7th or 8th payout. And then third is reinvest your profits back into getting more capital, because in the end, the more capital you have, the more money you can make.
Definitely. No, incredible. And we'll do another one then. So what is your top 3 tips to traders, to overcome the drawdown?
So, one thing that I used to do is when I was down a couple of percentage, I used to actually buy another small challenge.
Okay.
So that way I don't feel like risking more to get back to break even. So I would just pretend that account didn't exist. I would place small trades on that, and eventually I will get back.
Okay.
And it's just making sure that you don't risk more to try to get back. It's that impatience factor of it. If you try to make back what you lost in one trade, you'll end up losing the entire accounts. And that has happened to me many times, where I'm down 6-7%, and I was just thinking, okay, I'm gonna risk 2% on the next trade, and I'll potentially be back -2%. And what ended up happening, the majority of times, is I just lost the account. So when you're in drawdown, you have to stay patient and trust your edge.
Definitely. And I'll give you a final question then, which is more relation to the journey as a whole, which is, what would be your advice to the person who doesn't see that light? Like yourself, obviously you were in that dark place, failing challenges over and over and over. I remember that video you have where you scroll through it. It's like red.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, you change that. So what would your advice be to people out there who right now are struggling with that? Not seeing the light in trading.
What I would suggest is that it's possible, but you have to learn from your mistakes. You can't be doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. As long as you improve yourself, even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you keep improving yourself, whether it's 1% each day, eventually you will see that light. And once you see that light, it will happen if you keep improving yourself. It all comes down to self-improvement. If you improve yourself in any aspect of your life, I believe that it translates into trading as well.
Definitely. And I think, as you touched on earlier as well, people, if they are struggling to see that light, to test themselves, whether it's an Ironman, that might be an extreme one, but maybe it's a marathon, maybe it's a charity boxing fight, but challenge themselves to accomplish something, to prove to themselves and to maybe make that spark in a very similar way that you did. I think it was a very incredible thing that you did there. And I think, especially considering the low moment you were, it wasn't just that you were failing challenges, you were at a very numb and low moment. To be able to switch that with hardship, if anything, having to be disciplined and go through suffering to train for this Ironman event, which in itself, even though the suffering isn't even just the training, obviously the actual Ironman event is suffering as well. So it's really incredible to hear. And well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being here. It's my pleasure, honestly, and I'm very excited for the future. Well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Smart Funded Trader. Make sure you check the link in the description below, because no doubt by the time this drops, it'll be ready, right? It'll be ready, hopefully. But there should be some more exciting news to come as well. But make sure you check out Paladin's pages below as well. We have actually, literally whilst we were sat here, hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. By the time this comes out, who knows? Probably be a lot more. But we are aiming for 100,000 by the end of the year. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you drop a comment with your biggest sort of lesson from this episode as well. And until next time, take care.